I think we need to we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this portion, and we're gonna start getting ready for our book club pretty soon, I
Thank
think.
you.
Is there anything else you want to add before we switch gears and start talking about the book? I'm pretty excited about the book. I
I'm
don't know about
excited
you.
about it too. I personally love the book, and it's something that I identify with because I do spirit writing myself. And I was struck by the overwhelming authenticity as I read the book. The way she calls the spirit guide cave woman. I'm sure Ellen
Yes.
about that further, but the answers from cave woman were so grounded, so centered. I got it was the same feeling I get when I talk to a really good guy
Yes.
I trust.
Yes.
I recognized that immediately, and it's one of the reasons why this book compelled me so much, and I've been carrying it around. It is the real deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm anxious to meet Ellen. I'm looking forward.
Yeah, so I think we'll go ahead and we're going to bring Ellen in a little bit early. I'm going to go ahead and give a warm welcome to the amazing Ellen Archer. Hello, Ellen. Can you hear
Hi,
us? Are
Ellen.
you?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. My gosh, welcome.
Ellen,
Welcome. We are so
meet
excited
you.
to talk to you. We have your book.
Awesome. Crazy.
Yeah, and I know our audience, they've been giving me feedback. They've been reading your book as
Yeah.
well.
Ellen, I wanted very much to meet you because when I'm with a book that I love and I feel the presence of the author, you start to feel like a friend to me.
Oh,
I just wanted to meet you. I have so much respect for you.
oh my gosh.
Everybody heard me say this before. I don't know if you heard it, but I do spirit writing myself. I have notebooks where I have sections for different guides. And what I loved about your book is I felt the authenticity of what you were doing. The way Cave Woman spoke to you was very much like when I have a really good, solid guide that I trust. So I just commend you on this. What a beautiful job you've done. And I feel this book is going to be of great service to a lot of people. I'm not addicted to drugs or alcohol personally, but I learned a lot about myself in here. Some profound things, and I should let Whimsy talk.
Well, I wanted to just say, first off, thank you for writing the book. And if you can talk a little bit about when did you first begin writing the book, and how did the book first come about? And if you can just talk a little bit about how this book came about.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this book club. It's such a brilliant idea. And thank you for choosing my book and having me here. So it really started as a journal. I was so angry one day that I didn't think I could survive. I just thought I'd explode. And I remembered about left hand, right hand writing. And I thought if there's anybody I could talk to in the world, and I knew I wanted it somebody, when we lived in healthy, wise communities. So I just grabbed a notebook and wrote, Dear Cave Woman. And honestly, basically, it was just curse words at first. I was so angry. But then, like Cave Woman wrote, keep going.
Well, yeah, that reminds me a little of Julia Cameron's Artist Way, where she tells people to do morning pages.
Mm-hmm.
She's basically what you said. Don't worry if, like you said, curse words came out. Just put anything on the paper to open up your channel to get it going.
Yeah. So she would just encourage me, a little bit, and I would, I was like, okay, and I'd write some more curse words, and eventually it just, turned into a dialogue.
It sure did. I found it very compelling.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to hear that. It didn't become a book for quite a while. I mean, I didn't get the idea to turn it into a book.
I'm glad you did.
It was just my outlet,
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I feel also like there's two worlds happening simultaneously. You get that impression very much that this is not one book. There's the life you're going through as the person who's basically, it's three-dimensional. It's the three-dimensional world that you're in, trying to stay clean and sober. And then there's this whole mystical other world that we think of as not real. But by the end of it, you begin to the cave woman world becomes real, and then you forget. I found myself forgetting her. Was that intentional?
Well, I mean, it's lovely to hear. I don't, if I could do that on purpose, I would have. But it's
Yeah.
funny that you'd mentioned that because, I rewrote it. I worked with a book coach and I did a lot of rewrites. But the cave woman stories from her time just kind of came
That's the
and
way.
just kind of flowed out of me and
Yes.
required the least amount of rewriting.
I mean, Ellen, it's just exhilarating whenever I do this. So I understand what you're going through. It truly takes on a life of its own. I
Yeah.
once worked on a screenplay. It wasn't successful, but I wrote a screenplay where I mostly channeled. And there were times where I was trying to keep up with it on the keyboards because it was just flowing through me so fast. And the spirits were so impassioned to talk. They wanted their voices heard. Did you find that for yourself when Cave Woman spoke to you?
Mm.
Well, yeah, it would surprise
Yeah.
me, things
Yes.
she would say.
If I,
I mean, you can see that Syl is very skeptical. And it's like she's
well,
not even quite believing what's
well,
happening.
if I can say this, that's how sometimes I know what I'm writing is authentic, because I do question it. Like it's like I wouldn't have written this. So that tells me in itself that it was channeled to me when it's clearly not my words. And you had that sensation. There was a quote you had. You said during rest and play, the work you've done takes hold. And that resonated strongly with me. I'm a bit whimsy also because I tend to be a workaholic. I tend to just go, 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 crack the whip on myself. And I have to remind myself, you don't integrate these things unless you take time to just be quiet. And you pointed out rest and play. So I love that quote. And if you could elaborate on that, please.
Mm.
Well, that's so much the basis of mind body coaching is releasing the pressure we put on ourselves, the pressure culture puts on us to produce all the time, to be a workhorse. And I mean, even Syl goes through a period after she gets sober of workaholism.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just we can strive and we can do as much as we possibly can, but unless we take the time, like you said, I love the word
Yeah.
integrate.
That hit
It's
big time.
Well, the other thing I got was that she starts to get her act together. This is the thing I took away from her character, and starts working the program and asking these profound questions and doing all this internal work on herself. And then she starts looking at the people around her. Well, you're committing crimes at work. Wait a minute, you're supposed to be the functional people. So all of a sudden Syl's character, she becomes conscious of, she's consciously aware of the work she needs to do, which in and of herself, whereas I think a lot of the people she interacts with at work, etc., they're kind of sleepwalking. They're kind of unplugged.
yeah, absolutely. And Cave Woman helps remind her, let's stay conscious, because it's so easy to slip back into that, sleepwalking.
Well, I would imagine the more enlightened you became, the more conscious you were to the behavior of other people and how people many times are like sleepwalking zombies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we see it every day in politics.
Oh,
Did you feel that she was something do you feel like she was something that existed deep inside of you, a primordial part of you that ultimately you were talking to a primitive part of yourself, a memory of yourself?
Well, I think it's the wisdom we carry from generations that we used to actively sit around a fire each night and tell stories and, pass that wisdom along. And we don't really do that. I mean, little communities like this are popping up where we're actively doing that. And yeah, I forgot the question.
I think that we were just
Oh yeah, I remember yeah. So I call her my inner wisdom at times or my inner advocate. I've
yeah.
been liking that lately.
yeah. Well, it's interesting what you were talking about how we used to sit around, we would communicate with each other. You talk in the book about tribal beliefs, society in general. Something I took away from it about how I have wrote down here a quote you had: addiction comes from places where asking for help is considered shameful. And it's all
Oh
right,
yeah, yeah, I
but
remember.
our society tries to control us by shaming us, and that makes us afraid to ask for help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's almost a setup for addiction, you know.
Yes. Could you please elaborate upon that? Because I thought that was fascinating when you talked about it in your book.
Well, I'm working on a class right now called Recovery and ADHD Unshamed.
Uh-huh.
And so I've really been doing a deep dive into shame and just, I mean, it was very, very prevalent in my childhood. My
I
father was a
think for all of
narcissist
it was
and
for me.
just, yeah, yeah. So, I was pretty much shamed every day. And that unshaming
So sorry.
process
Mhm.
and, the shame of asking for help,
Yeah.
it's overwhelming. And it took me years. I mean, I just felt so ashamed to ask for help. And not just with addiction, but before I got help for addiction, I actually overcame chronic pain first.
I saw that.
Uh,
Yes.
And so, even asking for help with that, like outside of the regular normal medical
Right.
community, you
Shame.
know,
I truly empathized with you. I was a very bullied child, so I know about being shamed. Yeah, every day of my life I was
yeah,
shamed. I got it from my
yes.
my mother. I got it from the kids at school. So I totally understood where you were coming from, and it took me a long time before I had the courage to just say I need help. It's
Yeah,
okay to ask for help.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think.
you moved me very much.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
was. I mean, and she's. It smacks right. It's you hit on the issue of shame a lot, like right in the center of the book. She gets really
Yes.
down into it, and shame is the thing I think that blocks us from looking at ourselves. And if we can't look at ourselves and look at our shadow, we really can't heal ourselves. And the fact that you
Yeah.
go through all of that and you describe it so beautifully.
You did. You did.
The
Uh,
other the other thing I really like that she talks about is the hive mind and this idea. Maybe we were more telepathic back then, but you think about people that want to go out and do outdoor schools, hunting, where they live in the wild, nature schools, and they teach people to live together in a pack and to work together collectively and cooperate in a way that we've forgotten in the Western world. And that kind of hive mind where everybody knows where everybody else is, everybody's accounted for, everyone is beholden to everyone else. We've really lost that. Maybe we lost it through agriculture, the Industrial Revolution, but I think this disconnection we have to our tribes, our communities, our work, I think it's the source of a lot of our unhappiness, a lot of our shame, and then ultimately what happens to Syl, she becomes so disconnected that you try to you try to self-medicate. You could argue that that is also a form of spirituality. A
yeah.
person is trying to find their way out of pain, only it's a warped sense of spirituality
Hmm.
through addiction.
Yeah. You even mentioned that shame. I'm paraphrasing when I say can be positive, but shame propels us to get help, and it reminds us to keep reaching and striving for healthier connections. And I'm glad you pointed that out in the book. Because to me that was a positive aspect. Because I'm a big believer that not everything is just all negative or all positive. It's not black or white. There's many different meanings behind that, and you brought out that about shame.
Yeah, sure. I think there's positive aspects to every emotion, and
Yeah,
it's that forced shame. I think I call it in the book, that unrelenting shame
yeah.
that you and I both had in this culture,
Comes from our
growing
genetic
up, that is
son.
so damaging that we forget, oh yeah, a little bit of shame isn't such a bad thing, you know.
That's true. That's true. I mean, look what you have created here. I just feel your book is such a gift to people.
Thank you.
It was.
Yeah, we liked it a lot.
I
I'm so
loved it. It was
glad.
I
sent.
do you have one more question before we close? I think we're gonna have to close pretty soon, but do you have one more question before we close?
No, I was just going to comment that the book was sent to me by Whimsy, and she said we're going to interview you in a week and reading it, and I just became
devoured it. Yeah.
yeah, it's dog-eared the pages.
Oh my gosh.
We liked it a lot.
And if I
I'm
may
so
also
glad.
say this, I think you're a very brave woman. You're brave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
not just brave, but well, you know what I was thinking when I was reading this is, again, I don't struggle with addiction either. Well, I get ice cream,
yes,
but I think that this book can help a lot of people get it together.
yeah.
You know, because any going through divorce or whatever you're going through,
Yes.
because it reminds you of who you are, and it's not all that other crap. I mean, she doesn't just have to deprogram herself; she has to cut the cords with everything that makes Western society so screwed up. I mean, like the end of the book, she starts to realize the people around her, I think, are more screwed up than she is towards the end of the book. You know, it's like, I don't know. Anyway, so my final question to you before we close today, Ellen, is will you write a sequel? Because we'd like a second book.
I've already started it.
Good. You allude to that on the back of the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's underway.
Right, great. And you
The
will,
healing.
yeah. So will you come back again for book 2?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime.
Wow.
Please do.
Thank you so
Please do.
much. A million
Well,
thank yous.
Really excited to meet you, Ellen. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah.
See your
And thank you so much to all of you at home who could hang out with us for Taco Tuesdays, to our very own Debbie Brady, who was kind enough to help get us out of the craziness of today. Also, shout out to Joel Tilson, Geocosmic Valentine, Melanie Harmon, and everybody else who helped out today. Thank you so much to Ellen Archer, amazing author. We really feel honored that you could come today and be with us, and we look forward to seeing your work in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank
Be
you.
well, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.